Hi, everybody. Wishing all of you a very good evening. Thank you for being here on a Wednesday evening. I'm Praneeth. I head the undergraduate business and university partnerships for upGrad Abroad. And we're here to talk about why should you choose London as your study destination for your higher education. With me, I've got Neil Haddock, who's the head of international recruitment from the University of Roehampton, London, UK. And Neil leads the recruitment initiatives internationally for Roehampton across the world. And with Neil at the helm of international recruitment for University of Roehampton, there are right now, as I speak to you guys, the third fastest growing UK universities for international enrollment. So I'm sure there's so much more than just a little bit about the courses that we can pick up and learn from Neil. I'll give it over to him to introduce himself, and then we'll start deep. We'll make a quick deep dive into the topic. Neil, over to you.
Thank you, Praneeth, and good evening to everyone joining the webinar today. Thank you for making the time to come and see us. I know at Roehampton we're super excited about this new partnership that we have with upGrad. So really today, I hope you can leave today's session with a bit of more information about sort of your options in terms of study options at Roehampton and what you can expect from the University of Roehampton, but also studying in the UK as well. So lots of time to hear from me, from upGrad, but also time to ask lots of questions that I'm sure you will have as well.
Well, absolutely, yes. Thanks, Neil. For all of you who are here on the Zoom call, make sure that at the bottommost panel of your Zoom screen is the Q&A button. Neil and I are going to be looking at that box, and we'll keep on answering any questions, any queries, any doubts that you have for us. But it is important that for us to create value for you, we want you to ask us as many questions as you have, be it about Roehampton, or be it about studying in the UK, or be it about London as a city for students, anything. I'm sure that because Neil is spearheading the international recruitment, he gets asked these things pretty often. I'm super sure about that. Going right into the topic for the day, I first of all want to acquaint all of you with the idea of upGrad. So what upGrad essentially does is we make it so much more equitable, easy, affordable, accessible, democratized for Indian students to be studying across the world, whether it's the UK or US or Australia or Canada. So we let students do some initial foundational coursework in India for a couple of months, giving you at least 60 credits in the UK, cutting down your master's duration by one third, which gives you ample money to save about £6,000 to £7,000. But beyond that, about close to 3 or 4 months of living expenses get saved just because you pursued some coursework sitting at home. As a general rule, I think Indian students love the UK for their masters because the masters are extremely short, and some of the universities across the UK are really, really, really effective and well sought after. But the other thing that we've seen working out, and the mobility numbers are pretty obvious, is that UK is largely more affordable now, more than ever. So with upGrad, that cost further goes down by a factor of 1/3, and so what remains is about 60% or 65% of the entire cost that there is. On that model, we've set up 3 degrees with the University of Roehampton, which is a Master's of Science in Global Business Management, an MBA, and a Master of Science in DS, which is Data Science. Essentially, I'm going to be talking to Neil about these 3 courses, but we understand that you might have come looking for several others, which is why Neil has been emphasizing about the fact that you might as well want to ask us plenty of questions, as much as you can. And so the upGrad model now makes sure that your full and final Roehampton degree comes to you in about 11 lakhs, and that is it academically. And then you get a work placement. So all of these three courses, MSTS, MSc Global Business Management, and MBA, give you from 6 to 9 months of work placement or practice here, or half a year that you do where you're doing full-time placement, which can be both paid and unpaid, largely paid. And I'd let Neil dive into that. Neil, I think I'll ask you a few things.
Sure.
Now that I've introduced the three courses, and then maybe towards the second half, you can show them a little bit about the university and what would it mean to study at Roehampton. The number one thing that, Neil, I want to know is the topic. Why do you think London is one of the most strategic locations to study business or DS, technology or management, more than anywhere else in the world? Why is it that we should be coming?
Yeah, that's a good question. I know, we get asked that a lot from our international applicants. I think London has always been a focal point of UK or international students looking for a UK higher education. I think that'll always be the case. It's certainly it's obviously the capital. It's the economic hub of the UK across lots of different sectors. So I think what students enjoy is the opportunities that you get through student life and learning in a London-based university. And of course, coming to study in the UK, the academic program is sort of the core reason and really sort of important for our students. But it's also the connections that you make, the potential future career opportunities that you make through building those connections and networks. And London is a fantastic place to do that. And then from non-academic life, in terms of the wider student life, I think London is quite unique, not just in the UK, but globally. There's nowhere quite like London. And I think the excitement of that big sort of dynamic, global, very diverse city like London has so much to offer for international students, and why it's so popular.
Yes, I think that absolutely makes sense. I think the other thing that, being the city that it is and giving tons of employability opportunities for international students, and being that center of the UK economy, I think that it makes a lot of sense. I think a follow-up question to that, Neil, would be, in your experience at the role that you are, and of course, I'm sure you keep a track of who gets placed or who gets employed where, which courses do you think make the most amount of sense in 2022, keeping in mind the next 5 years? What do you see are some 3 or 4 or 5 new age or modern day courses that yield the most amount of employability, Neil?
Yeah, so that's a very big question, but an important question. I think, particularly when you're looking for a UK education and you're traveling from somewhere like India or wider in the region, you want to be looking at what your return on investment is. And we've very much kept that in mind in terms of the portfolio development that we have gone through over the last couple of academic years, with a very sort of high focus on student outcome and employability. So we are, very proud of the fact that 97% of our postgraduate students go into employment after gaining their postgraduate award with us. Where we've seen growth in particular is across our business and management programs, particularly at postgrad level, and also in our computing programs. So the 3 programs that Praneet mentioned before, our MBA, our Global Business Management Masters, and also the Data Science one, are 3 of the top performing programs that we have, both in terms of demand coming from potential students, but also in terms of that employment opportunity afterwards. And the placement module really, I think, is an important thing to consider, because as I said, it's London's popular, but the UK at the moment is very popular for international students, and part of the reason is the great opportunities around post-study work. So at Roehampton, not only do you have that opportunity to get a work placement, to get experience, to build the skills that employers are looking for, you also get to connect with that employer. So what we do see is students that perform well in their placement go on to secure a job within that organisation when they graduate. So that's a very important part of it. And as I said, building those connections when you're on your placement, making sure that you're building your network of contacts within that organisation, and really focusing in on those sort of employability skills. I think a combination of those factors, I mean, there's never been a greater time to come to London and to study. So a wealth of opportunities for our international students.
Thanks, Neil. You mentioned the return on investment. I think, of course, we've been very strategic in choosing the right courses. I think not just with the UK economy standpoint, but I think the world is at a point where a degree like MBA or global business management, where it's a hyper-connected world, and I think it's so much easier for any business in this world to expand beyond its place. I have seen so many startups move up from here to the US, UK within a year or so. So I think now more than ever, that is a very coveted skill set. And I think in our experience, I'm sure you agree with me on this, that international business and global business management in the UK are actually two of the most sought after courses. Absolutely. And DS, I think, is something that isn't just limited to the UK, but I think even in the US, where we sell and send the course to so many students, DS is very lucrative because it gives, I mean, it's got so diverse branching into AI and machine learning and DA and BA and whatnot. So the whole concept, the whole skill is very employable. That being said, Neil, because you mentioned return on investment, what is it that students should expect after investing the fee on a UK master's? So for example, with upGrad, the Roehampton master's should be about 11 or 12 lakh rupees. What should they be expecting in terms of their starting salaries, Neil?
So you mean in terms of securing work and salaries, or do you mean in terms of the actual program itself?
No. So once their work placement is over and they're on a 2-year-long GIR, the post-study work visa, what kind of salary should they be expecting when they move out of Roehampton? You mentioned that the employability is 95%, which is whopping, but how are the salary figures like, Neil?
Yeah, I mean, it does vary depending on what sector students go into. It can vary quite significantly, but students should be looking at, graduates, particularly master's graduates, should be looking at what we see is students starting at sort of 20,000 plus in terms of an annual salary. But as I said, that can really drastically change depending on the sector and the role and the level of responsibility. Students that are coming with more experience and placement obviously helps with that, can demand higher salaries, and people in specialist fields as well. So when you talk about data science, that's a sector that is a high salary sector, so you would be expecting to demand a higher starting salary amount. But yeah, I mean, as I said, it's difficult to pin down an exact figure, but it will depend on the sector, the role, the level of responsibility. It also depends on how I think students engage throughout the whole process. So where we see students that demonstrate really good success is obviously academically sort of focused, ensuring that they come well prepared and are ready for the master's program. Students that engage in the pre-placement support that we have at the university are much more likely to then secure a placement, and students that do secure a placement are then much more likely to go on to secure post-study work as well. So I think it's important to make that point that you know, there's lots of opportunities, but you need to make sure you're focused and you work hard and you go down sort of the correct channels and routes to be able to take advantage of those opportunities.
Thank you so much, Neil. We've got a few questions, but before I take them, I just want to know from you, Neil, that in your experience, ideally, if a student comes to you having finished Indian coursework, and you're very well aware that for global business management and MBA, they're moving from IMT Ghaziabad, which is the AA CSP business school, and they're coming to you with a postgraduate certificate or a postgraduate program in management. And similarly for your MSDS, they come to you with an advanced certificate program in DS, knowing Python, SQL, complete machine learning, time series, advanced machine learning, analytics and whatnot. And so with that kind of a robust foundational skill set, how much success likelihood, I mean, how much more success likelihood do you see for these students in the UK job market? As in, would you recommend that route to students?
Yeah, I mean, I guess in terms of the local job market at the moment, I mean, it has, I guess, post sort of Brexit and post COVID, the landscape has changed a bit. Obviously, the landscape for EU nationals and the restriction of movement and work in the UK now has meant that there's been a drop in the number of nationals coming from the EU. And post COVID, what we've seen is actually a lot of job vacancies in the UK. I think I saw a recent report from Universities UK that, you know, graduate route into employment is a big part of the plan to backfill sort of more than 1 million jobs across the UK economy. So there are certainly lots of opportunities out there to do that. The placement and the graduate route into post-study work offer really great pathways for international students to secure work and to get that experience in the UK. So, I mean, there should be no reason why students shouldn't be able to secure some kind of work. Again, it will depend on how our graduates engage in that process in terms of what job they would get. But it's, yeah, as I said, a great time and great opportunities for our international students. And what we do see actually is that our international students are also very mobile, sort of in terms of the global markets. So we do see our international students not only staying within the UK to secure work, but also working across other countries as well. And I think what it does demonstrate to employers is that if you're capable of going and studying somewhere like the UK from India, and you've adapted well, you've secured work, you've got that experience, I think it shows some important skills as well to future employers around sort of how well you adapt to new markets. You know, the experience of working in a market like the UK as well, which is great for your CV and great in terms of opening up future opportunities as well.
Absolutely, Neil, I think that makes sense. We've got a couple of questions, Neil, but for that, I just want all of our attendees here to know that upGrad is now working with the University of Roehampton, London, to ensure that you can pick up a Master of Science DS, an MBA, a Master of Science Global Business Management. 3 of these courses on a pathway where you do the first 60 credits in India and then immediately move for the rest of the 120 in the UK on campus. Once you're done with 9 months of your university education, you immediately move into a placement year, which can be 6 months, 9 months, or a full year of work of relevant placement year, and you get extra credits for the same. So much so that your degrees are not just an MBA or a Master's in Science Global Business, but a Master's in Science Global Business with practice. So that's the ideal structure of the course that we're working on, and we work with IMT Ghaziabad, the Triple IT Bangalore. IMT Ghaziabad is an AACSB business school, which means it's one of the top 5% B schools. Triple IT Bangalore is India's #1 private tech school. That's where we do the foundational coursework from. This is an online coursework, so you're pretty much doing this if you're a working professional or if you're home. And then we immediately transfer you to the University of Roehampton to do a Master of Science Data Science, or Master of Business Administration, or Master of Science Global Business Management, bringing the cost down of your course to 11.3 or 4 lakhs for the fee structure, which means now more than ever, it's about 10, 11 lakhs and you're done with your UK degree with a practice year, with a 2-year post-study work visa. I think, Neil, now would be a good time for you to just take us through the University of Roehampton and how does student life, or how do you manage academia? And one interesting question, Neil, that I have for you before you show us the slide deck is, how many industrial or experiential interventions are there during the course? As in, how many times do they do an industrial research or industrial project, or how many times do they go for a training? How many experiential component are there in the degree?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that depends on whether students take the placement or not. The placement is the large proportion of that, experiential part of the program. So that again can be, you mentioned around the duration of the placements, but it can also be full-time or part-time. So obviously, if you're in a full-time position, you're going to get more exposure to that industry, that organization. And then we also have touch points throughout our career support at university as well. So we'll have the opportunity to meet with potential employers, to engage with potential employers through things like career fairs, or through our online, our on-site recruitment agency as well. So through our careers team, there's lots of opportunities to engage with external organizations and employers. And then through the placement module, that's your sort of main points of contact with industry. The actual academic content obviously is sort of theory-based content that's part of the academic program. But within that, you will look at sort of working in sort of industry case studies, examples of how industries work across different sectors, but from a theoretical point of view. But the placement and those career support services add in that sort of hands-on experiences as well.
Absolutely makes sense. Neil, I think you can share your screen and just take us through the University of Roehampton and why should students go there. Just wanted everybody to know that even if you're directly looking to go into the University of Roehampton, you now have that option. And that essentially means that you can pick up the course of your choice and go study in London.
Okay, great. So I shall whiz through these slides, and I'm sure we'll have some time for questions afterwards as well. But just to give you all a sense of the university, what it's like to study there, where it is, and what we have to offer as an institution. So just quickly to highlight the progression courses that we've been talking about. So here are the three programs. We mentioned about the fee structure. So the benefit really is that, as Praneet said, you come in with advanced credit. So the fee structure is brought immediately down. For the MBA, just over 11,000 instead of almost £17,000. And the MSCs down to almost 10,000 from about 16,000. So that's based on 22, 23 fees as well. So an immediate sort of cost benefit that you're gaining because you're bringing in those advanced credits through the upGrad agreement. And I know we talked a little bit about the placement year, but I know that this is a particularly important consideration for our international students. The university provides lots of preparation and support for you to gain a work placement. But I really need to emphasize the point that you need to engage in that process. If you engage with the preparation and support that's provided through our careers team, then your chances of securing a placement are so much higher. So the main sort of component of that is the placement preparation module, a series of workshops to support you in the process of securing a placement. You must engage with that module to be able to go on to secure your placement, but lots of practical skills. So, you know, the job market might be quite different to where you're coming from. So the careers team will walk you through sort of a typical, you know, recruitment process for a role in the UK, things you need to do as part of your application, making sure that you're comfortable with the style of interviews that will happen for your job placements, the whole range of sort of factors that you need to consider when you're applying for a job in the UK, which might be or is likely to be the first time you've ever done that. You've got a dedicated team to support you through that process. So any questions, concerns, or areas of support that you need, the university is well placed to provide that for you. The placement itself obviously involves going out to an employer and, you know, working with that employer largely, but it is included as part of the academic content of the program. So your work placement is a placement year module, which can vary in length. As I mentioned earlier, it can be part-time or full-time, and it can be paid and unpaid, depends on the organisation, and the placements are not a guarantee. But as I said, if you engage in the process, then your chances are strong of securing a placement. A little bit about the university itself. We are an institution that's been delivering higher education for more than 180 years. So we've got a very long history dating back through our 4 historic colleges, the first of which was established in 1841. So a very rich sort of heritage and history of delivering higher education in the UK. Interestingly enough, we were the first higher education institution in the whole of the UK to enrol female students. So something that we're very proud of at the university. We're a top 10 ranked modern university in London. We are what I like to say sort of a very traditional campus university. So you can see from the picture here, it's a very green parkland campus, but you're in a central London borough, and you're 25-30 minutes away from the very centre of London. So what the benefit you have at Roehampton is that enclosed campus experience, but London and the city centre itself right on your doorstep. Bit of information about our sort of student population. We have just over 10,000 students enrolled with us, which would sort of be about a medium-sized university in the UK. 6 different academic departments where we offer a really wide range of undergrad and postgraduate programs. For upgrad students, obviously the business School of Business and Law is where 2 of the programs sit, and then the data science sits in our computing school under the School of Arts. We're a very, very diverse institution, so much like London, lots of different nationalities represented. 141 plus, and about 50% of our students are international. So we have large cohorts of students coming from India. So you'll be studying alongside students from your region, perhaps, but also alongside lots of other different nationalities as well. It's an important part of our campus experience that is very international and very diverse. This is where, sorry, Praneet.
I am so sorry. Just want to take a break in the middle. We've got too many of them asking us things, and I would like to pass some of them to you. Yes?
Sure.
If you don't mind. What happens if the students are not able to secure a placement? How will the placement module credits be calculated towards the degree? So I think we can take this in two halves. One is, to what extent does Roehampton play a role in helping you get there? But what really happens then if you don't get it?
Yeah, I mean, as I said, there's the first slide or second slide was really focused on what support we provide at the university. So that pre-placement module, the careers team that do drop-in sessions, that will support students with the practical skills of finding a work placement. Our careers team also have a network of organizations and companies that we work with, that we know students have secured placements with before. So, I mean, it does depend on the student, but if you come engaged, you come being proactive, and you engage in all of those support services, then you've got a good chance of finding a placement. If you're unable to do that and you're unable to secure the placement, then what we would do is just move you straight on to completing the academic program without the placement module. That will mean that your visa period would be shortened slightly, but it would still mean that you're eligible for the graduate route into post-study work. So if you're unable to find a placement as part of the degree, you can complete your degree and then find work after you graduate. So that could be sort of a backup option. I mean, some of our students prefer to do the academic program without the placement, and some prefer with the placement. It's really a personal choice. What I would say is that that placement year is a good sort of opportunity to test the water, to find out sort of what it's like working in the UK, and to get that experience that you can use when you graduate.
Just wanted to also reiterate the fact that essentially the placement module gives you extra additional label on the degree and some extra credits that you graduate with. But if you don't do that, you still get the major course degree any which way, that you're still an MSc Global Business grad, just without the extra credits, just without the with practice label on your degree. But like Neil said, you still get the GIR, the graduate post-study work visa, and you're pretty much any other graduate. Right, Neil?
Exactly. The qualification remains the same with or without the placement. The placement is an additional benefit in terms of maybe helping you get that experience.
We've got a student who's asking, please discuss about the eligibility. So Neil, I'd let you go ahead with that.
Sure, yeah. I might need you to jump in as well, Praneet, but so in terms of the eligibility and entry criteria, we'd be looking at GPAs of 70% from the eligible courses that progress. Praneet, you might need to give the details of the diploma programs that the students can come on to those programs with.
Absolutely, yeah. So with Roehampton, you need a 60% in your bachelor's degree and a 70% in the IIIT Bangalore Advanced Certificate Program in DS, ACP DS. And with the IMD Ghaziabad, you need a 70% in their Advanced General Management Program. That's the bare minimum that you need to get. And of course, in your bachelor's, you need a 60% to enter Roehampton. In general, their criteria is somehow 70%, but with us, that's a little eased out because you're doing additional grad level courses. So I hope that clears out. On the scholarship front, the courses that upGrad learners have an access to is anyway somewhere around 11 or 10,000 pounds. That's essentially lesser by 7 to 8,000 pounds. So I hope we answered you, Pavni. Uh, Arun says your voice is a bit feeble. Neil, I hope you can hear me all fine, right?
I can hear you fine. Yeah, the only thing I was going to add to that, Praneet, was the English language requirements. Now, we do have as part of the process, you need to demonstrate your proof of English language, but we can accept if applicants are applying from India, which I guess will be the majority of the applicants, we can accept proof of English via an MOI, depending on the region that you're applying for. So you don't necessarily have to take something like an IELTS or another English test. We can accept MOIs onto the program for proof of English.
Absolutely. I just wanted to add on to that. So if in case, so our website lists down almost every condition, but essentially if you have a 70% in your grade 12th and a medium of instruction certificate in English, you're pretty good to go without the IELTS. And if you're from certain states in India, just the MOI will do. You just need a medium of instruction in English certificate from your last academic institution and you're pretty set. You don't need the IELTS. What is the scope of sports analytics? What are the best universities? Vineet, I'm sure doing DS covers a wide range of analytics in different domains. And so Roehampton, especially on this articulation arrangement, should be pretty attractive. One, because it's one of the top 10 in London, and one of the most sought after courses, which is what you're talking about. So sports analytics, largely, essentially, if you understand DS correctly, if you understand the broad science and the foundational level skills, I think you're going to be pretty okay doing anything you want in analytics. What is a master's degree with integrated placement? Does the university place the student for placement after completing the modules? Does the student have to find the placement? I think it's been answered, so I'm not going to take it again. It goes both ways. Neil, here's an interesting one. How is supply chain management in London?
I mean, some of that will be covered in the global business program, depending on the modules that are selected. So there are sort of operations management and logistics with supply chain management within that. I mean, not just in London, but across the UK. Yeah, there's lots of job opportunities in that sector. A lot of the hubs are based in London, but we also have regional hubs in other major cities across England, Wales, and Scotland as well. So yeah, I mean, it's a sector that I actually have a few friends that work in that sector as well, and there's a lot of opportunities across the UK, but also, as I mentioned before, a UK degree is well respected and recognised globally. So a lot of our international graduates will use that to secure work across other sort of markets and countries as well. But yeah, certainly some good opportunities in that sector.
And you mentioned that the global business management allows them to specialize in supply chain, yes?
So as part of some of the module content, particularly around operations management, there will be some of the academic content in that area, yeah.
Got that. Neil, here's an interesting one. They're asking the difference between a Master of Science Global Business and an MBA.
Yeah, I mean, they're at the same level. So they're both. So we have a national qualifications framework in the UK, and we have different levels for each qualification. So a bachelor's degree would be a level 6, a master's would be a level 7, but you have some variations within that. So this is an example. So we have Masters of Science or Masters of Arts, MScs and MAs. The MBA is a title of its own, so Masters of Business Administration. Typically, the MBA has been a program that has been designed for students that have sort of work experience prior to joining. And the benefit of studying an MBA often is around sort of peer-to-peer learning as well. Now, our MBA doesn't require any previous experience, but you still get the benefits of that sort of a wide, diverse cohort where you can have that peer-to-peer learning. But really, sort of MBAs are for students who are looking to make that next step in their career, looking to move into sort of a management role. The MBA is good at supporting that next step.
Thank you, Neil. I think you may want to pull up the eligibility criteria slide that you have. Also, I think I'd like to correct myself. The bachelor entry criteria is going to be 55. So as long as you've got that, you can pretty much apply to our courses. And with the diploma or the additional PGP that we do, you need a 70% in the triple ITP or IMT course. But largely, as long as you've got a 55 in bachelor's and above, you're all set. Neil, how much work experience would they need if at all they need for either of the three courses?
So we wouldn't assess that as part of the application. Obviously, I think it helps, but it's not a mandatory requirement.
You'd have to repeat that. There was a very faint voice.
Yeah, so I said it's. I think it helps having experience, but it's not a mandatory requirement. So it wouldn't be assessed as part of the application.
So two other things that is important for all attendees to know here is that there's no work experience required, and pretty much everybody can apply, and the entry criteria is going to be 55%. Neil, there's some question on the living costs for Roehampton students. What's the average living cost going to be?
I mean, that is a real sort of, it really varies. We have some students, I mean, London is one of those places that the sky's the limit in terms of how much you want to spend. So you would need to bear that in mind. London is not, certainly not a cheap place to live, but if you're sensible in terms of particularly accommodation, it doesn't need to be overly expensive. So particularly, we notice particularly our students from India and from the region in South Asia are quite good at living within sort of a reasonable budget. But I would say that you'd be looking at accommodation is probably the biggest expense. We have on-site accommodation, which the cheaper accommodation can be sort of about £450 to £500 a month. On top of that, you would want sort of another 300 to 400 to be able to sort of pay for transport and food and so on. The good thing about staying on campus is that it includes all of your energy bills. And right now, across Europe and across the world, energy bills are certainly a lot more expensive than what they used to be. So that's a saving that you would make because it's all inclusive. Some of our students also secure off-campus accommodation. And that can really range from the cheaper end to about 300, 350 if you go down the room share, and you can pay up to however much you want, 1,000, 2,000 a month. But I would say sort of if you want to be sensible and live within sort of a reasonable budget, sort of £800-900 a month should cover you. And of course, it's worth noting as well, even when you're studying, you can work part-time. So outside of the placement, which might be paid, you can work part-time as part of your student visa. During term time, that can be up to 20 hours a week. And outside of term time, you can work full-time. So that really goes a long way in supporting the cost of living if you're working as well.
Neil, one of the questions for you is, as a data scientist, what kind of job roles will be open for me?
I mean, as I mentioned earlier, I think London, economic hub of the UK, you're going to see more sort of data science graduate opportunities than anywhere else across the country. And a lot of the big tech companies are based in London as well. So, I mean, obviously, not everyone's going to be working for the likes of Google and Facebook, but those sorts of organizations, their UK head offices tend to be in London. But also you've got smaller, medium-sized businesses that make up the bulk of sort of businesses in the UK economy, where there's opportunities there for data science graduates as well. And it's a growing industry. So it's
in general, as long as you've got a thriving economy, there are roles for the data analysts, business intelligence specialists, consultants, and whatnot. I think almost every field right now has some role for a DA. Absolutely. Milroy is asking, I have 5.79 GPA. I think it'll work, Milroy. Neil, to what extent do you believe that if you're looking for computer science, a DS course is more likely to future-proof your career than a computer science course? Would you believe in that? And in your experience at Roehampton, which one fetches more employment, Neil?
Yeah, I mean, looking at the specific, I need to dig out our internal data on the employability rates per program to, I guess, give you a definite answer on that for Roehampton graduates. But I mean, I think that the data science degree and the computing one both give you sort of very strong transferable skills into that sort of sector, that industry. But the data science one perhaps is a little bit more specialized. There's high demand for that skill in the UK at the moment, and there's job vacancies in that sector as well. So what we're seeing is that I think that where there's higher demand and a shortage of people with those specialist skills, then they're demanding higher salaries as well. So certainly data science is one of those fields.
Thanks, Neil. Do we require any work experience for MBA? No. How many years is MBA course? It's going to be for years. All UK masters are mostly 1 year. And because you're doing almost 1/3 of the course, so you're doing 60 credits in India, 120 in the UK. It's going to be 9 months plus another 6 to 9 months of placement. Neil, does the MBA come with an internship?
I mean, so I guess internships and placements, I guess I think they're probably
absolutely
the same thing that we're referring to. But the placement, as we said, can be paid or unpaid. Ideally, you'd secure a paid placement. But if you don't, again, you can always work part-time to supplement that whilst you're benefiting from getting that experience. But yeah, I mean, I think we sort of use those words interchangeably, internship and placement.
Got that. So for everybody to know, regardless if it's an MBA or not, we've got the MSDS, MSc Global Business, MBA, all of them come with work placement, also sometimes called a professional practice. All of these last 6 to 9 months to a year. They're mostly paid. And what they essentially do is help you gain a hands-on experience in the UK job market. Most of the placement, or in fact, placement as a general concept, should be relevant. It should not be a case where it's an irrelevant assignment. If you generally want to gain experience, I think the part-time work, like Neil mentioned, is the way to go. If you just generally want to gain some practical market skill set. But I think with the robust, rigorous Roehampton academia that you're doing, when you're putting skills in the job market, it helps you keep pace with the dynamism of the UK economy. I think you learn a lot while you earn experientially, which is why the work placement is so much more important. But I just want to reinforce the idea that even if you don't find a placement, which is not the case, because generally work placement cohorts, so the MSc Global Business cohort with placement is going to be a separate cohort than the regular MSc Global Business. And so you've got limited placement and also limited students opting for it. So you pretty much get that. But even if you don't, you still graduate with a regular degree, which gives you the 2-year post-study work visa. So that's all set. Neil, someone's asking me, is there a difference between international business or global business management? I could answer that, but I still think that it should come from you. That what do you think, if at all, there's any difference between the two, Neil?
I think it's one of those. I mean, we've got, for example, an undergraduate program in international business, but I think international and global are one of those sort of terminologies that are a little bit interchangeable. So if you see, a master's degree at a different university called International Business Management and Global Business Management at Roehampton, you're going to be covering similar sort of topic areas. I think it's more of a terminology difference than the actual sort of difference in terms of what you'll be learning.
Got that, Neil. I think we pretty much. What's the advice timeline for the application process for everybody to know? Our courses start each month, whether you're a working professional or whether you're at home or you're an entrepreneur or you run family business, XYZ, whatever you are doing, you can pursue this course online for about 8 months, and then you move to the UK in fall of 2023. Here's an interesting part. The University of Roehampton is an interesting offering because one, it has 3 intakes, which I'd let Neil talk about. But the other thing is that you can study without an IELTS. Neil, could you guide them through the intakes for global business and MSDS, and similarly for MBA, which is 2 intakes?
Yeah, so we have 3 intakes across the academic year. We have September, January, and April. Across all 3 intakes, we offer our postgraduate programs in business. So those, the Global Business Management and the MBA will be offered across those 3 intakes. For the data science at the moment, you're eligible for that just for the September, and let me just, I think also the January, let me just double check that. But yeah, the business ones is across all three intakes essentially. But I'll look that up, and before we close the session, I'll let you know on the data science one. But I think it's just for September at present. But we are quite often reviewing our intakes in terms of the courses that are offered, so that could change in the very near future.
Thanks, Neil. And you're correct. For the DS, we just have 2 intakes. For business, we've got 3.
Correct, yeah.
I'm just going to also proof check that, because
so we have January and September for the data science, and then for the 2 business programs, we have the 3 intakes. So that is correct.
Absolutely correct. So the MSDS is Jan, September. The MBA Global Business, both with placement, are Jan, April, September. So I hope I answered you. The MIM program is essentially the MSc Global Business, if that's what you're saying. You can, of course, visit our website or just go to the University of Roehampton website and search for the course curriculum. Neil, we've got an interesting question. What is the accreditation of Roehampton? I
mean, more widely, the universities in the UK all have to be accredited to be able to have degree awarding powers by the UK government. So obviously, the University of Roehampton has that, as well as all of the other universities in the UK. So the university itself has the authority to award those degrees. The business programs, in terms of external accreditation, we have all of them are accredited by the Management Institute as well. And that's an external body that sort of quality assures the program. So yeah, there's sort of, I guess, broadly speaking, the university has obviously the accreditation to be able to award degrees, and then we have on some programs external accrediting partners as well, like the business programs in this case.
Would you maybe throw some light on the business program accreditations that we've got in place, Neil?
Yes, I mean, as I said, that all of the business programs. Let me just get this correct before I don't want to give anyone the wrong information, but in terms of the global business management one, it is accredited. CMI accredited. That's what I was looking for. So Chartered Management Institute is one of our partners that accredits the program for the global business management, as well as the MBA as well.
Thanks, Neil. We've got a few more questions. Have mailed you. Can get it done? So Tanya, there will be somebody who will come back to you if you mail me. I'll copy the person, will give you the number. I just wanted to also mention to everybody my email address. It's praneeth.singh@upgrad.com. Neil, if there is any slide that you feel is imperative for them to make sense of the articulation arrangement, please feel free to put that up and run them through it, because we're mostly done with all the questions.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think everyone's seen the slides on the progression, the fees and the entry requirements, but I'm conscious of the time, we don't have long left, but just to give you a bit of an overview of student life at Roehampton as well, because that's an important aspect of studying in the UK. So a lot of our student life activities, clubs and societies are organised through the Roehampton Students' Union. What you can see there in the photo is an event that the Students' Union organised as part of an end of year sort of celebration to the end of the academic year. But you can get involved in all sorts of societies on campus. Here's an example of some of them. Have some weird and wonderful opportunities to engage in different societies. Some of them are sort of based on cultural exchange and having a country sort of society where people can learn and engage with students from different nationalities and countries. Some of them are sort of academic based, some of them are sports based as well. And if you see something that you want, there's a gap in the market, and you want to open your own society, then you can do that certainly as well. A bit about the competitive sports that we offer. So if there's any sports players that are looking to continue that as part of their time at Roehampton, you've got lots of opportunities to engage in that as well. We also have some of the best esports gaming facilities in the UK for UK universities. So we have an esports society, but also an opportunity to engage in that as part of your extracurricular activities as well. So if there's any gamers in the house, you can certainly continue that at Roehampton. I talked about the accommodation. One of the things that make Roehampton unique is it's sort of 4 colleges that form the university. So there's a little bit of information here. We have the academic schools based in the colleges, but also the accommodation. And you also enroll with the college, not only the university. So, it's quite a sort of unique community feel across the campus as well. And I just wanted to highlight some of the sort of good practices in terms of when you do submit an application. There's documents that you need to submit as part of it to make the processing of your application much more seamless and efficient. Some of these you might not have at point of application, but if you do, it's always worth providing them at point of application. It saves time and effort at a later stage as well. So here's what we need to make that assessment. So details of your qualification, the certificate, the transcripts. A personal statement is also a must. We need that as part of the application. Proof of English, which we discussed, some references. And if you have studied in the UK before, or you do have any immigration history in the UK, you need to give that information at point of application as well. It saves time and any problems at a later stage. The online app, it's an online application form. It's very straightforward. You select your program, you complete all of the sections, and then that comes through to our admissions team to be processed. And that takes me to the end. So just in time for 3 o'clock, Praneet.
So,
3 o'clock.
I hope I've been able to answer everybody. Just one final question, Neil, that I'd like to, or I'd love to ask you, and I normally ask everybody, how many gap years are actually acceptable? How many gap years are actually acceptable for someone entering an MBA cohort? And tell me about your MBA cohort, as in, what's the age group and how diverse is it in terms of nationality and the domain background?
Yeah, so we have, I guess to answer the first part of your question, in terms of education gap, for postgraduate, it's a 5-year education gap allowance that we have for applicants from India. We also have what we call a pre-CAT interview as part of the application process. So that's our admissions team, our regional team based out of Mumbai, invite you to come along to an interview to learn about your educational background, to learn about your reasons for studying in the UK. It's certainly not an interview to try and catch anyone out. It's just for the university to understand what your sort of aims and objectives are at joining the university. So as long as you come prepared and researched, then you shouldn't have a problem with that that interview at all. In terms of the cohort, age group, sort of experience and so on the MBA, because we don't require work experience, we do have a combination of students that come with maybe sort of 5 years plus work experience, or they might come as a fresh graduate. So it's quite diverse in terms of experience that our students have. We do have a significant proportion of our students coming from India. So you will be studying alongside students, fellow nationals from India, but we do have lots of students also from other countries. So from the wider South Asia region, but also we have significant proportions of students from West Africa, from East Asia, from Southeast Asia, and some not so much on the business portfolio, but we do have significant numbers of students coming across from North America and from Europe as well.
Thank you, Neil. It's been an absolute honor, pleasure hosting you. I request everybody to please keep visiting our website, upGrad.com. My colleague Arushi's put down some links on the chat box. We're super excited to be launching this UK program where we're cutting the cost down from about 20 lakhs academically to somewhere around 10 lakhs close at the University of Roehampton in London. Roehampton living cost is going to be about 800 GBP a month, which makes it again very affordable in terms of the London price point. And we are accepting applications now for the next year's intake. I wish you guys all the best. We've tied up with IMT and IIID Bangalore on upgrad.com. You can continue working, you can continue being an entrepreneur, you can continue with your family business, continue doing something else that you're doing, an open course, an upskilling course, something else, and yet pursue this for 8 months and then immediately go for the September intake in Roehampton. Of course, the other part is if you're already a learner of IMT or IIID Bangalore cohort, then what this means for you is you've got 3 intakes, January, April, September. And if you're a IIID Bangalore student, then you've got January and September. If you're near January, you can make it right now. If not, then you can move to September. I wish you guys all the best. Neil, any final valedictory message for the attendees?
No, thank you for coming along. As Praneet said, we're super excited about this new partnership. And I hope that I will welcome some of you onto our campus in the near future.
Thank you, Neil. Thanks, everybody. Wishing all of you a great evening ahead. Thank you. I put down my email address in the chat box. You might want to pick it up. I'll wait for another 5 seconds for you to be doing it. Any question that you have for me, please feel free to ask me. Is Duolingo accepted? Well, actually, IELTS is not required. So Duolingo does not actually mean anything as long as you got a medium of instruction. in English. If you don't do that, anyway, you're coming through the IMT route or triple ITB, which is taught in English. So you can just use the MOI and you're pretty much through. You don't need IELTS. Some states are going to be a little tricky. You will need MOI and 70% marks in 12th. Nevertheless, Neil, do you accept TOEFL, IELTS, PTE, all three of them? And do you accept Duolingo?
Everything that you just mentioned, apart from Duolingo, we don't currently accept that.
So Duolingo is actually more preferred in US and Canada. UK, I've not really seen that much of familiarity or acceptance, but I'm sure you guys will be able to crack TOEFL or PTE.
We also, I mean, it's worth noting, we also have our own internal testing system in partnership with another organization, so we can test students ourselves as well.
Okay, so which means it's your in-house testing system, is it?
Correct, yeah. We partner with Oxford Education Group to deliver that test.
Got that. Thank you so much, Neil. Wishing you a great day. Wishing everybody a great day.
Thank you very much. Cheers, bye-bye.
The eligibility is 55% in bachelor's, 70% in triple ID, Bangalore, IMT, PGP that you do with upGrad. Hope that clears. Thank you, everybody. If in case I couldn't answer your question, that's probably because it wasn't in the best interest of time and everybody. If it was a very specific question, please feel free to put that down in email. Wish you guys good luck and see you soon. Thank you.